For millennia, the Galactic Empire had expanded its dominion across the stars, subjugating one alien civilization after another under its iron rule. From the moment the first primitive spacefaring races made contact with the Imperial fleets, they found themselves facing an overwhelming force, the likes of which they had never imagined. The Empire's advanced technology, disciplined armies, and ruthless determination to assimilate all into its fold proved too much for the hapless xeno-species to resist. One by one, the once proud civilizations fell, their leaders forced to kneel before the Emperor and swear fealty. Those who defied the imperial decree were mercilessly crushed, their worlds reduced to ash, and their people enslaved. The Emperor's reach grew ever longer, his grasp tightening around the throat of the galaxy. Yet, within the conquered territories, a palpable undercurrent of discontent began to churn. The subjugated races, stripped of their autonomy and cultural identities, simmered with resentment against their oppressors. They whispered of revolution, of casting off the shackles of imperial rule, but dared not act for fear of annihilation. At the heart of the empire, the ruling elite remained oblivious to the growing unrest. Drunk on the intoxicating power of conquest, they saw themselves as the rightful masters of the galaxy, destined to bring order to the chaos. The Emperor, in particular, basked in the adulation of his subjects, secure in the belief that no force in the universe could challenge the might of his legions. "We are the pinnacle of evolution," the Emperor would declare to his advisors, his eyes gleaming with unbridled arrogance. "Our technology, our military might, our sheer determination, all of it makes us invincible. No civilization, no matter how advanced, can stand against the full fury of the Galactic Empire." The Imperial Moff Council, a cabal of high-ranking military commanders and bureaucrats, nodded in agreement, their own self-importance swelling with each triumphant campaign. They scoffed at the occasional reports of unrest, dismissing them as the futile grumblings of primitive species unfit to join the grand imperial design. "Let them grumble," the Moffs would say, their voices dripping with disdain. "Their time will come, and they will learn to appreciate the glory of our rule. Any who dare to defy us will be crushed without mercy." Yet beyond the well-guarded borders of the Empire, a new civilization had emerged, one that would soon shatter the very foundations of the Galactic Imperial Order. This species, known as humans, had recently ventured out into the stars, their thirst for exploration and scientific advancement driving them to expand across their home planetary system and beyond. The Imperial scouts who first encountered these curious bipedal creatures were baffled by their remarkable technological prowess and the sheer tenacity of their spirit. Unlike the previous xeno races the Empire had subdued, the humans exhibited a fierce independence and an unwavering determination to chart their own destiny among the stars. When the Imperial emissaries arrived at the human homeworld, bearing the customary demands for submission, they were met with a response they had never before encountered, a resounding refusal. "We will not bow to your empire," the human leaders declared, their voices firm and unyielding. "Our people have fought long and hard to secure our freedom, and we will not surrender it to any foreign power, no matter how vast your reach may be." Stunned by the audacity of this defiance, the emissaries returned to the Empire, their tails metaphorically between their legs. The news of the humans' rejection spread through the imperial court like wildfire, igniting a tempest of outrage and disbelief. How dare these primitives defy the will of the Emperor? The Moffs raged, their faces contorted with fury. "They will learn the consequences of their insolence, even if we must burn their entire civilization to the ground." As the imperial war machine began to mobilize, the gathering storm clouds of conflict loomed ever larger over the galaxy. The first galactic war with humanity was about to begin. The vast, silent void of interstellar space was suddenly shattered by the emergence of a massive imperial fleet, its sleek warships cutting through the darkness like predators on the hunt. At the heart of this formidable armada was the flagship of the Imperial Admiralty, the awe-inspiring dreadnought known as the Eternal Dominion. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, the Imperial Admiral, Galen Orcius stood on the bridge, his piercing gaze fixed on the distant star system they had targeted for conquest. This was to be a routine subjugation, just one more xeno-civilization added to the ever-expanding domains of the Galactic Empire. "Prepare the boarding parties," Orcius commanded, his voice laced with the confidence of a man who had never known defeat. "We will make short work of these primitives and bring them into the fold of our glorious empire." The order was swiftly carried out, and the Imperial fleet surged forward, its powerful engines propelling the massive warships towards their unsuspecting prey. But as they drew closer, the Admiral and his officers were startled to detect an unexpected phenomenon. A vast network of orbital platforms, armed with weaponry that far exceeded the capabilities of any species the Empire had encountered thus far. Before Orcius could react, a barrage of energy beams lanced out from the platforms, slamming into the leading Imperial vessels with devastating force. Hulls were breached, shields overwhelmed, and the proud ships of the Eternal Dominion were sent reeling, their crews scrambling to regain control. "What sorcery is this?" the Admiral roared, his composure shaken as he watched his vaunted fleet take heavy casualties. "Hail the enemy. Demand their immediate surrender." The communique was dispatched, but the response that came back was not one of fear or submission, but of defiance. "We are the human unified worlds," a stern-faced individual declared, her image flickering on the Eternal Dominion's view screen. "We have no desire to be subjugated by your empire. Return to your borders, or face the consequences of your aggression." Orcius gaped at the screen, his mind racing to comprehend the audacity of this xeno-species. Never before had a conquered civilization dared to defy the Imperial decree with such unwavering conviction. "You are making a grave mistake, human," the Admiral growled, his fingers clenching into fists. "The Galactic Empire does not tolerate such insolence. Surrender now, or we will be forced to destroy your entire civilization." The human leader's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing with determination. "So be it, then. We will not bow to your tyranny." The transmission abruptly cut off, leaving Orcius and his officers in a stunned silence. For a long moment, the Admiral contemplated his options, weighing the potential consequences of his next actions. Ultimately, his desire to preserve the Empire's reputation and his own pride won out. "All ships, prepare for full-scale assault," Orcius bellowed, his voice echoing across the command deck. "We will show these humans the true power of the Galactic Empire." The Imperial fleet surged forward once more, its mighty guns blazing, intent on crushing this unexpected resistance. But as the first volleys of fire were exchanged, it became clear that the humans were no mere primitives. Their advanced technology and unwavering determination would make them a formidable adversary in the coming conflict. The first galactic war with humanity had begun. The initial skirmish between the Galactic Empire and the human unified worlds had proven to be a humbling experience for the once invincible Imperial forces. The humans' advanced weaponry and unyielding resolve had caught the arrogant Imperial Admiral Orcius and his fleet off guard, inflicting significant damage and forcing them to retreat. Nursing his wounded pride, Orcius returned to the heart of the Empire, his report sending shockwaves through the Imperial court. The news of this unexpected defeat at the hands of an unknown xeno-species was met with outrage and disbelief among the Moff Council and the Emperor himself. "Unacceptable," the Emperor roared, his face contorted with fury as he paced the gilded halls of the Imperial Palace. "These humans dare to defy the might of the Galactic Empire. They will learn the true consequences of their insolence." The Moffs, their own egos bruised by this stunning reversal, echoed the Emperor's sentiments, their voices dripping with contempt. "The humans are nothing more than savages, unworthy of the glory of our civilization," spat Grand Moff Tarkin, his cold eyes narrowing. "We must crush them swiftly and without mercy, to serve as a lesson to any who would dare challenge the Imperial order." Rallying his most trusted advisors, the Emperor set in motion a plan to utterly annihilate the human unified worlds and bring the wayward species to heel. The Imperial war machine, honed by centuries of conquest, began to mobilize on an unprecedented scale, with fleets of warships and legions of elite ground forces readying for the impending invasion. Across the vast expanses of the galaxy, the Imperial propaganda machine went into overdrive, painting the humans as a threat to the stability and prosperity of the Galactic Empire. The citizens, already conditioned to revere the power and might of their rulers, were whipped into a fervent nationalist frenzy, eager to support the crusade against this newfound enemy. The humans have dared to defy the will of the Emperor. The Imperial holo-broadcasts blared, their rhetoric laced with inflammatory xenophobia. They must be eradicated, for the good of all civilized species in the galaxy. As the war drums beat ever louder, the Emperor himself delivered a thunderous declaration to the entire Imperial domain. "My loyal subjects," the Emperor's booming voice echoed through the comm channels. "The time has come to show these humans the true power of the Galactic Empire. They have rejected our generous offer of integration, and thus they have sealed their own fate. We will not rest until every last human is brought to heel or reduced to dust." The Imperial proclamation was met with a deafening roar of approval from the masses, their fervor for war reaching a fever pitch. Across the conquered worlds, the subject races watched the unfolding events with a mixture of trepidation and cautious hope. Some dared to whisper of a possible opportunity to break free from the Imperial yoke, should the humans prove capable of withstanding the full might of the Empire. But for now, the die had been cast, and the First Galactic War with humanity had been officially declared. The galaxy braced itself for a conflict that would shake the very foundations of the established order. The vast Imperial fleet, its hulking warships bristling with fearsome firepower, emerged from the swirling hyperspace vortex, its sights set on the outer reaches of human-controlled space. Admiral Orcius stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his weathered face etched with a grim determination. "All ships, prepare for battle," he commanded, his voice carrying with the weight of 1,000 conquests. "We will show these humans the true might of the Galactic Empire." Across the void of space, the human defensive forces, having detected the approaching Imperial armada, readied themselves for the impending onslaught. Flotillas of sleek, angular spacecraft maneuvered into defensive formations, their advanced energy cannons and missile batteries primed and ready. As the two mighty fleets closed in on one another, the silence of the void was shattered by the thunderous roar of weapons fire. Brilliant bolts of energy lanced out, slamming into shields and hulls, while massive missile barrages streaked through the blackness, raining destruction upon their targets. The human pilots, their skills honed by years of rigorous training, executed daring maneuvers, weaving between the behemoth Imperial warships and targeting their vulnerable points with precision. The Eternal Dominion, once the pride of the Imperial Navy, found itself overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of the human counterattack, its shields buckling under the relentless barrage. Orcius gripped the edge of the command console, his knuckles turning white, as he watched his fleet sustain heavy losses. This was not the decisive victory he had envisioned, and the realization that these humans were proving to be formidable adversaries sent a chill down his spine. "Intensify the barrage," he roared, his voice laced with a mixture of fury and desperation. "We cannot allow them to gain the upper hand." The Imperial vessels responded with a withering hail of energy beams and missile salvos, their volleys tearing through the human defenses. But for every ship the Empire destroyed, the humans seemed to counter with an ingenious tactic or a devastating counterstrike. The battle raged on, with neither side willing to concede an inch. The vast expanse of space became a vast, chaotic battlefield, filled with the dying embers of shattered spacecraft and the desperate maneuvers of the combatants. The humans, driven by a fierce determination to protect their homeworlds, fought with a ferocity that defied the Imperial forces' overwhelming numerical advantage. As the hours turned to days, the tide of the battle began to turn. The Imperial warships, strained by the constant onslaught and the strain on their resources, started to falter, their once impenetrable shields and armored hulls showing signs of wear. The human forces, seizing the opportunity, pressed their advantage, launching daring strikes and employing innovative tactics to whittle down the Imperial fleet. Orcs, his pride now diminished by the realization that this conflict would not be the swift, decisive victory he had anticipated, gritted his teeth and ordered a strategic withdrawal. As the battered Imperial vessels limped back towards the relative safety of their own territories, the human defenders let out a collective sigh of relief, but they knew that this was merely the first skirmish in a much larger war. The First Galactic War had begun, and the galaxy held its breath, uncertain of which side would emerge victorious. As the weeks turned into months, the First Galactic War between the Galactic Empire and the human unified worlds showed no signs of abating. Both sides had suffered heavy casualties in the initial clashes, but the humans, driven by an unbreakable determination to defend their hard-won freedom, refused to back down in the face of the Imperial onslaught. While the Empire's vast numerical superiority and technological might continued to pose a significant challenge, the humans' innovative tactics, spur-of-the-moment adaptations, and sheer tenacity began to wear down the overconfident Imperial forces. Time and time again, the human commanders would outmaneuver their adversaries, exploiting weaknesses in the Imperial war machine and inflicting crippling losses. Aboard the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Orcs paced the bridge, his brow furrowed with frustration and disbelief. The reports flooding in from the various battlefronts painted a bleak picture. Imperial fleets were being ambushed and outmaneuvered, ground forces were struggling to gain a foothold, and the steady stream of reinforcements and supplies was being disrupted by the humans' hit-and-run strikes. "This is unacceptable," Orcs roared, slamming his fist against the bulkhead. "How can these primitives be holding their own against the might of the Galactic Empire?" The Moffs, gathered in a hastily convened war council, exchanged uneasy glances, their own confidence shaken by the unexpected turn of events. "The humans have proven to be far more resourceful and resilient than we anticipated," Grand Moff Tarkin admitted, his usually cold demeanor betraying a hint of concern. "Their tactics are unconventional, and their ability to adapt is troubling." The Emperor, his once unassailable self-assurance now tempered by the realization that this war was not going as planned, summoned his top strategists and commanders to the Imperial Palace. "This cannot continue," the Emperor declared, his voice laced with a rare note of uncertainty. "We must find a way to break the will of these humans, or risk losing everything we have worked so hard to build." The assembled military leaders offered a range of suggestions, from deploying devastating superweapons to implementing more ruthless occupation tactics. But as the debates raged on, it became clear that the humans' stubborn refusal to surrender was not simply a matter of military might. It was rooted in a profound sense of purpose and a deep-seated belief in the rightness of their cause. Across the human-controlled territories, the news of their forces' hard-won successes against the vaunted Imperial war machine spread like wildfire, igniting a surge of pride and unity among the populace. Volunteer enrollments soared as ordinary citizens, inspired by the heroic deeds of their soldiers, took up arms to defend their homeworlds. Even the conquered species within the Empire, long resigned to their subservient status, began to take notice of the humans' defiance. Whispers of rebellion and dreams of freedom echoed through the subjugated worlds, as the once unthinkable prospect of challenging the Imperial order became a tantalizing possibility. As the conflict dragged on, the tide began to turn in the humans' favor. Their resourcefulness, adaptability, and unwavering determination slowly eroded the Empire's numerical and technological advantages, forcing the once dominant forces into a defensive posture. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Empire found itself on the brink of defeat, its very foundations shaken by the unexpected rise of the human unified worlds. The galaxy watched with bated breath, wondering which side would ultimately emerge victorious from the crucible of this unprecedented clash of civilizations. As the reports of Imperial defeats continued to filter back to the heart of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor's rage and desperation grew with each passing day. The once invincible military machine, forged through centuries of conquest, was now being steadily chipped away by the resilience and ingenuity of the human unified worlds. This cannot be allowed to continue. The Emperor bellowed, his eyes blazing with a furious intensity. We must crush these humans, no matter the cost. Summoning his most trusted advisors and military commanders, the Emperor set in motion a series of desperate measures, intent on turning the tide of the war in the Empire's favor. First, he ordered the deployment of a new generation of advanced superweapons, technologies that had long been kept under lock and key, reserved only for the most extreme of circumstances. Massive planet-destroying ships equipped with devastatingly powerful energy beams were readied for the assault, their mere presence intended to instill terror in the hearts of the human defenders. Let these humans witness the true might of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor declared, his voice dripping with a cruel satisfaction. Their pitiful resistance will be crushed beneath the weight of our superior firepower. Alongside the superweapons, the Imperial war machine unleashed a wave of experimental cutting-edge technologies, from cloaking devices that rendered entire fleets invisible to the enemy, to advanced electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt the humans' communication and control networks. The Moffs, their own pride and reputations at stake, eagerly embraced these new weapons, convinced that they would finally break the will of the stubborn humans. With these tools at our disposal, no force in the galaxy can stand against us, Grand Moff Tarkin proclaimed, his lips curling into a malicious grin. The humans will be brought to their knees, and the Imperial order will be restored. As the reinforced Imperial fleets surged back towards the front lines, the humans braced themselves for the coming onslaught, aware that they were about to face the full, unbridled fury of the Empire. The subsequent battles were unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Massive energy beams lanced out from the Imperial superweapons, obliterating entire planets and moons with a single devastating strike. As the First Galactic War raged on, the once pristine expanse of space became a vast, chaotic battlefield, scared by the ceaseless exchange of devastating firepower. The clash between the Galactic Empire and the human unified worlds had escalated into an all-out war of annihilation, with both sides unleashing their most destructive capabilities against one another. The skies above the contested worlds were ablaze with the brilliant flashes of energy beams and the thunderous explosions of missile strikes. Entire planets were reduced to lifeless husks, their surfaces scoured clean by the fury of the combatants. Vast armadas of ships, their hulls rent asunder, drifted aimlessly through the void, their crews long since perished. On the ground, the human cost of the conflict was equally staggering. Elite Imperial legions, clad in advanced armor and wielding state-of-the-art weaponry, found themselves pitted against the determined human defenders, who fought with a ferocity born of a deep-seated desire for freedom. The battles were brutal, with neither side willing to back down, and the casualties mounted with each passing day. As the casualty reports filtered back to the Imperial capital, the Emperor's triumphant confidence began to give way to a growing sense of unease. The humans, far from being the primitive, easily conquered species he had envisioned, had proven themselves to be formidable adversaries, their tenacity and resourcefulness defying the Empire's vast military might. "This cannot continue," the Emperor muttered, his brow furrowed with a rare expression of concern. "The cost of this war is becoming far too high, and our own people grow restless." The Moffs, their pride still wounded by the humans' unexpected resilience, were reluctant to admit defeat. They urged the Emperor to press on, to unleash even more destructive firepower until the humans were finally broken. "We cannot stop now, Your Majesty," Grand Moff Tarkin insisted, his eyes glinting with a fanatical determination. "The humans must be eradicated, no matter the cost. Anything less would be a betrayal of the Empire's legacy." But the Emperor, his own resolve wavering in the face of the mounting devastation, knew that such a course of action could have dire consequences. The once loyal populace, already weary of the endless cycle of conquest, would not tolerate the annihilation of an entire civilization, no matter how much the Moffs might demand it. "Enough," the Emperor said, his voice soft yet firm. "We will explore other options, options that do not require the complete destruction of the humans. The galaxy has seen too much bloodshed already." Reluctantly, the Moffs acquiesced, their protestations fading in the face of the Emperor's decisive command. Yet even as the Imperial forces began to shift their tactics, the damage had already been done. The once vibrant worlds within the human unified worlds lay in ruin, their populations decimated by the merciless onslaught. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble in the aftermath of the cataclysmic battles, its very fabric shaken by the sheer scale of the destruction. Entire star systems had been wiped off the map, their once thriving civilizations reduced to ash and memory. As the dust began to settle, both the humans and the Galactic Empire were forced to confront the harsh realities of total war, the loss of countless lives, the devastation of once prosperous worlds, and the fundamental reshaping of the galactic order. The First Galactic War had become a crucible, testing the limits of their resolve and the very foundations of their civilizations. The outcome of this epic conflict remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: the galaxy would never be the same again. As the First Galactic War raged on, the Galactic Empire found itself facing a new and unexpected challenge: the gradual erosion of its once ironclad control over the subjugated alien civilizations within its domains. For centuries, the conquered species had lived under the oppressive yoke of imperial rule, their cultures suppressed and their identities subsumed into the homogenized structure of the empire. But now, sensing the empire's vulnerability and the humans' growing strength, these long-subjugated races began to see a glimmer of hope for their own liberation. Whispers of rebellion and dreams of freedom spread like wildfire through the occupied territories, as the subject populations took note of the humans' defiant stand against their imperial overlords. Surreptitious contacts were made, covert supply lines were established, and the first tentative steps towards organized resistance began to take shape. The Moffs, their attention focused on the escalating conflict with the humans, were slow to detect the stirrings of unrest within their own domains. By the time the reports of subversive activity reached the imperial court, the situation had already grown dire. "This is unacceptable," Grand Moff Tarkin raged, his face contorted with fury. "How dare these traitors undermine our efforts at a time of war?" The Emperor, his brow furrowed with a mixture of concern and calculation, listened to the reports with a grim expression. He recognized the danger posed by a potential widespread uprising, but he also understood that the Empire's resources were already stretched thin by the ongoing struggle against the humans. "We cannot afford to divert our forces to quell these uprisings," the Emperor said, his voice laced with a rare note of uncertainty. "Our priority must remain the defeat of the humans. Find a way to contain the unrest, by any means necessary." The Moffs, eager to prove their loyalty and secure their own power, set in motion a series of brutal crackdowns, dispatching elite imperial legions to crush the nascent rebellions with an iron fist. But to their dismay, the efforts to quell the subject populations only served to further stoke the flames of resistance. As the news of the Empire's heavy-handed tactics spread, the humans saw an opportunity to exploit the growing unrest. Covert agents were dispatched to the occupied worlds, making contact with the dissident groups and offering them aid and resources in their struggle against their common oppressor. The subject races, desperate for any chance to break free from the imperial yoke, readily accepted the humans' overtures. Weapons, supplies, and even specialized military advisors began to flow into the hands of the burgeoning rebel forces, bolstering their capabilities and emboldening them to launch increasingly daring strikes against the imperial forces. The Galactic Empire, once a towering monolith of power and control, now found itself facing a two-front war, one against the stubborn humans, and another against the very subject populations it had subjugated for centuries. "This cannot be allowed to continue," the Emperor muttered, his eyes narrowing with a renewed determination. We must find a way to crush these uprisings and the human resistance, or the Galactic Empire will fall. As the war raged on, the delicate balance of power in the galaxy began to shift, with the humans and the subject races forging an unlikely alliance against their common foe. The Eternal Dominion and its sister ships, once the pride of the Imperial Navy, now found themselves facing a formidable and multi-pronged assault, their once vaunted might slowly eroding under the strain of the dual conflicts. The fate of the Galactic Empire hung in the balance, as the First Galactic War entered a new and tumultuous phase. After years of brutal, unrelenting conflict, the First Galactic War between the Galactic Empire and the human unified worlds had finally reached its climactic conclusion. The once mighty Imperial war machine, battered and diminished by the dual challenges of the human resistance and the subject population's uprisings, had been pushed to the brink of collapse. On the battlefield, the humans, their determination forged in the crucible of countless battles, had emerged victorious, their resilience and tactical brilliance proving too much for the Empire to overcome. The Imperial fleets, their once vaunted technological advantages rendered obsolete by the humans' adaptability, were forced into a desperate retreat, their once proud commanders humbled by the magnitude of their defeat. But the price of this hard-fought victory had been staggering. The landscapes of countless worlds lay in ruins, their populations decimated by the relentless bombardment and ground assaults. Entire star systems had been wiped off the galactic map, their once thriving civilizations reduced to ashes and memories. As the dust settled and the smoke cleared, the human leaders surveyed the devastation that surrounded them, their expressions a mix of triumph and sorrow. They had succeeded in defending their freedom, but at an immense cost that would haunt them for generations to come. "We have won the war, but at what price?" the president of the human unified worlds murmured, his voice heavy with the weight of the sacrifices made by his people. Across the shattered imperial territories, the subject races, having seized the opportunity to rise up against their oppressors, now found themselves facing an uncertain future. The Galactic Empire, once the unquestioned ruler of the galaxy, lay fractured and weakened, its grip on power slipping through its fingers. The Moffs, their ambition and pride tarnished by the defeat, jockeyed for position, each vying to carve out their own spheres of influence from the crumbling imperial structure. The Emperor himself, his once boundless confidence shaken, retreated from the public eye, leaving the task of rebuilding to his squabbling subordinates. In the void left by the Empire's collapse, the humans found themselves thrust into the role of a new galactic power, their influence and reach expanding as they forged alliances with the once subjugated civilizations. But even as they celebrated their hard-won victory, they knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. "The galaxy has changed forever," the human president acknowledged, his gaze fixed on the distant stars. "We must now find a way to navigate this new, unpredictable landscape and ensure that the sacrifices of our people were not in vain." As the surviving imperial forces grudgingly accepted the terms of the ceasefire, the galaxy held its breath, uncertain of what the future might hold. The First Galactic War had shaken the very foundations of the established order, and the consequences of this seismic shift would reverberate for generations to come. For the humans, the triumph over the Galactic Empire represented a new beginning, a chance to forge a path of their own, one that would inevitably shape the destiny of the galaxy. And for the conquered civilizations, the promise of freedom and self-determination sparked a glimmer of hope, even as they faced the daunting task of rebuilding their shattered worlds. The First Galactic War had come to an end, but the implications of this pivotal conflict would echo through the stars for years to come, as the galaxy grappled with the rise of humanity and the uncertain fate of the once mighty Galactic Empire.